Hey there, and welcome to Crazy Pepper, the channel where drama sizzles and revenge burns hotter than ever. If you love jaw dropping twists, bold characters, and stories that keep you guessing till the end, you're in the right place. Subscribe and dive into gripping tales of betrayal, karma, and ultimate payback. Get ready for unforgettable moments and satisfying endings, only on Crazy Pepper. Hit that bell and let the drama begin. If suspicion burned calories, I'd be a swimsuit model by now. Instead, I'm just Danny Morrison, 42 years old, fixing my rundown Ford pickup at midnight in my own driveway because my wife thinks the sound of tools makes her anxious. Everything makes Rebecca anxious these days. Everything except her late-night phone calls that make her giggle like a teenager. I was elbow deep in the engine when I heard her voice drifting through our bedroom window. Sweet as honey, soft as silk, nothing like the sharp tone she'd been using on me for months. "No, you can't come over tonight," she whispered. "Danny's still awake. Tomorrow at lunch, same place." My wrench slipped, scraping my knuckles raw against the engine block. 20 years of marriage, and I'd never heard her use that voice with me. Not even during our honeymoon. I wiped the grease off my hands and crept closer to the house. Rebecca was pacing by the window, phone pressed to her ear, wedding ring nowhere to be seen. "I know it, baby. I miss you too. Just be patient." Baby. She hadn't called me that in 5 years. The next morning, Rebecca was all business as usual. Crisp white blouse, navy skirt, hair pulled back in that severe bun she wore to the law firm. She barely looked up from her phone when I walked into the kitchen. "Coffee's cold," she said without lifting her eyes. "I'm late for a deposition." "Good morning to you too, sunshine." I poured myself a cup of the lukewarm coffee. "Sleep well?" "Fine." She grabbed her briefcase and headed for the door. "Don't wait up tonight. I'm having dinner with clients." "Which clients?" She paused, hand on the doorknob. "The Morrison case. You wouldn't know them. Morrison? Like my last name Morrison? Different Morrison." Her voice had that edge again. "Don't be paranoid, Danny. Doesn't suit you." After she left, I sat at our kitchen table, staring at the family photos on the wall. Our daughter, Emma, at graduation. Our 10th anniversary in Hawaii. Rebecca and me at my boxing gym's fundraiser, her arm around my waist, actually smiling. When had we stopped smiling? My phone buzzed. Text from my buddy Jake at the gym. "Coffee? You look like hell lately." I grabbed my keys. Maybe Jake would have some perspective. Maybe I was losing my mind. The Knockout Boxing Gym occupied the ground floor of an old brick building downtown, sandwiched between a pawn shop and a diner that served coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Jake Martinez had owned the place for 15 years, ever since his own boxing career ended with a torn rotator cuff and too much pride to quit gracefully. I found him in the office, surrounded by stacks of paperwork and the smell of liniment. "You look like someone stole your lunch money," Jake said, not looking up from his ledger. "Worse, I think someone stole my wife." That got his attention. Jake was 60, built like a fire hydrant, with gray hair and knowing eyes that had seen every kind of human drama play out in his gym. "Talk to me." I told him about the phone call, the missing wedding ring, the sudden late nights and client dinners. Jake listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding like he'd heard the story before. "You got any proof?" he asked when I finished. "Just gut instinct. Gut instinct don't hold up in divorce court, my friend. You need evidence. I'm not talking about divorce. I'm talking about knowing what's happening in my own marriage." Jake leaned back in his chair. "Danny, you've been coming here for 8 years. In all that time, has Rebecca ever once set foot in this gym? She's busy with work. She's embarrassed by you." The words hit harder than any punch I'd taken in the ring. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Means she married a blue-collar guy when she was young and broke. Now she's a hotshot lawyer making 6 figures, and you're still fixing trucks for a living. Some women grow with their husbands. Others grow away from them." I wanted to argue, but the truth was sitting in my chest like a stone. Rebecca had been pulling away for years, making little comments about my lack of ambition, my limited social circle, my blue-collar mentality. I'd thought it was just stress from her job. "So what do?" Jake opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small device I didn't recognize. "GPS tracker, magnetic. Stick it under her car, check where she really goes." "That's not legal?" "Yeah, it is. Car's in both your names, right? You got every right to know where your own vehicle is going." I stared at the tracker. It was smaller than a deck of cards, innocuous looking. This feels wrong. You know what feels wrong? Being lied to by the person who promised to love and honor you? Take it or leave it. But if you want answers, this is how you get them. That evening, I waited until Rebecca went upstairs for her shower, then slipped out to the garage. Her BMW sat in its usual spot, pristine and expensive, everything my pickup wasn't. I crawled underneath and attached the tracker to the frame, my heart hammering like I was committing a crime. The next day, I watched the little red dot on my phone as Rebecca drove across town to Chez Laurent, the fanciest French restaurant in the city. The same restaurant where we'd celebrated our anniversary 3 years ago, back when she still pretended to enjoy my company. I threw on my least wrinkled shirt and drove downtown. Chez Laurent was all dim lighting and quiet conversation, the kind of place where entrees cost more than I made in a day. I asked for a table in the back corner, somewhere with a view of the dining room but hidden in shadow. The hostess, a young woman with an attitude that matched the restaurant's prices, looked me up and down like I'd wandered in from the street. "Do you have a reservation? I'm meeting someone." She seated me reluctantly at a small table behind a decorative pillar. Perfect. I could see most of the dining room without being seen. Rebecca was already there, sitting across from a man I recognized from her law firm's Christmas party. Chad Brennan, one of the partners, 15 years younger than me, and built like he lived at the gym. They were leaning across the table toward each other, fingers intertwined, her wedding ring sitting on the white tablecloth beside her wine glass. I ordered a beer and watched my wife flirt with another man. She was animated in a way I hadn't seen in years, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm, playing with her hair like a college girl. When he reached across to stroke her cheek, she closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. 20 years of marriage, reduced to a piece of jewelry sitting abandoned on a restaurant table. The waiter brought my beer. I drank it slowly, watching Rebecca be happy with someone else. When Chad excused himself to use the restroom, I saw my chance. I walked over to their table and sat down in his chair. "Hi, honey." Rebecca's face went white, then red, then white again. "Danny, what are you doing here?" "Having dinner. Nice place. Very romantic." I picked up her wedding ring and examined it in the candlelight. "You forgot something at home. This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" "Because it looks like my wife having dinner with another man while her wedding ring sits on the table like a piece of trash. Keep your voice down." She glanced around the restaurant nervously. "People are staring. Let them stare. I'm just a husband talking to his wife and her boyfriend." Chad returned from the restroom, stopping short when he saw me in his seat. Up close, he was even prettier than I'd remembered. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, probably had a personal trainer, and a skincare routine. "Rebecca, is everything okay?" I stood up slowly. I had 4 inches and 30 pounds on Chad, all of it earned through years of physical labor and boxing training. "Everything's fine. I'm Danny, Rebecca's husband. You must be the client she's been having so many dinner meetings with." Chad looked at Rebecca, then back at me. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. You're sleeping with my wife. She's cheating on her husband. Pretty straightforward situation." I smiled at him, not a friendly smile. "The only question is what we're going to do about it." "Danny, please." Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. "Not here. Why not here? This is where you decided to throw away 20 years of marriage. Seems like the perfect place to discuss it." Chad straightened his tie, trying to look confident. "Look, I think we should all calm down and handle this like adults." "I am calm, and I am an adult. An adult who just discovered his wife is a cheating liar." I leaned closer to Chad. "Tell me, counselor, do you make a habit of sleeping with married women, or is my wife special?" "That's enough." Rebecca stood up, grabbing her purse. "I'm leaving. Sit down." Something in my voice made her freeze. I wasn't shouting, I wasn't making a scene, but 20 years of marriage had taught her to recognize the tone that meant I was done playing games. "Sit down." She sat. I turned back to Chad. "You got a wife, Chad?" "I don't see how that's relevant." "Answer the question." "Yes." "Kids?" "2 daughters." "How old?" Chad was sweating now. 7 and 9. 7 and 9. Pretty little girls, I bet. "Does your wife know you're here?" "My personal life isn't your concern." I laughed loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. "My wife is sleeping with you and you think your personal life isn't my concern? That's rich." I pulled out my phone and started dialing. "What are you doing?" Rebecca hissed. "Calling information. I'm going to get Chad's home number and have a nice chat with his wife. I bet she'd love to know where her husband spends his evenings." "Stop." Chad reached for my phone. I pulled it back. "Why? You ashamed of something? I thought we were all adults here. Please, Chad said. My daughters don't need to know about this. But my daughter does? Emma's supposed to find out her mother's a cheater, but your kids get to keep thinking daddy's a good guy? The restaurant had gone quiet around us. Other diners were openly staring now, but I didn't care. Let them watch. Let them see what 20 years of marriage looked like when it died in public. I'll give you a choice, Chad. You can call your wife right now and tell her what's been going on, or I can call her and tell her myself. But she's going to find out tonight. You can't do this, Rebecca said. Watch me. I started dialing again. Chad grabbed my wrist. Don't touch me. My voice was quiet, deadly. Take your hand off me right now, or I'm going to break it. Chad let go like I was on fire. Smart man. Now make the call. I can't. Then I will. Wait! Chad pulled out his own phone with shaking hands. I'll do it. He dialed a number and waited. I could hear a woman's voice answer, bright and cheerful. Hi, honey. Are you coming home soon? Chad looked at me, then at Rebecca, then closed his eyes. Sarah, we need to talk. I'm coming home now. There's something I need to tell you. The woman's voice changed, became worried. Chad, what's wrong? I'll explain when I get there. Just put the girls to bed. This is going to be a long conversation. He hung up and stared at the phone like it was a bomb. Good boy, I said. Now get out of here before I change my mind about letting you walk away. Chad threw money on the table and practically ran for the exit. Rebecca watched him go, her face crumpling. Happy now? She whispered. Ecstatic. I sat down across from her and signaled the waiter. I think I'll have dinner after all. The shows made me hungry. Rebecca didn't come home that night or the next night. On Thursday, I got a call from her sister, Linda, who lived in the suburbs with her investment banker husband and their twin boys. Linda had never liked me, thought Rebecca had married beneath her station. Rebecca's staying with us for a while, Linda announced without preamble. She needs space to think. Space to think about what? Whether cheating is wrong? Danny, you humiliated her in public. You threatened Chad. You could have been arrested. For what? Having dinner, talking to my wife? For maltreatment, for stalking. Rebecca told me about the GPS tracker. I should have been surprised that Rebecca had figured it out, but I wasn't. She was a lawyer, trained to spot evidence and connect dots. The car's in both our names. I have every right to know where it goes. You have no right to spy on her. I have every right to know if my wife is cheating on me. Linda's voice got that superior tone I remembered from family gatherings. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere for companionship. Companionship, is that what we're calling it now? Rebecca is an intelligent, accomplished woman. She needs intellectual stimulation, cultural enrichment. When was the last time you took her to the theater? To an art museum? When did you last have a conversation about something other than sports or your precious boxing gym? When was the last time she asked? When was the last time she showed any interest in my life, my work, my friends? Your friends? Linda laughed, sharp and mocking. You mean the ex-convicts and dropouts at that gym? The bartenders and mechanics you drink beer with? Rebecca's a partner at one of the city's most prestigious law firms. She can't be seen associating with people like me? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I hung up on her. That evening, Emma called. Our daughter was 19, a sophomore at State University, studying pre-law like her mother. She had Rebecca's sharp intelligence, but my stubborn streak, a combination that had led to some spectacular teenage arguments. Dad, what's going on? Mom called me crying. I was sitting in my kitchen, eating Chinese takeout straight from the container, surrounded by the silence of an empty house. Your mother and I are having some problems. She said you followed her to a restaurant and made a scene. She said that, did she? Did she mention why I was there? She said you've been paranoid and controlling lately, that you've been tracking her movements and accusing her of things. I set down my chopsticks. Rebecca had gotten to Emma first, shaped the narrative, before I could tell my side. Smart move, counselor. Emma, your mother is having an affair. Silence on the other end of the line. Did you hear me? I heard you. Emma's voice was small, younger than her 19 years. Are you sure? I saw them together. I saw her take off her wedding ring and hold hands with another man. Oh, God. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry about all of it. Who is he? Someone from her firm, Chad Brennan. The guy from the Christmas party? The one with the perfect teeth? That's him. Emma was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was harder. How long has it been going on? I don't know. I just found out this week. What are you going to do? Good question. What was I going to do? I could file for divorce, split our assets, fight over custody of a daughter who is already grown. I could try marriage counseling, pretend the last 20 years meant something worth saving. Or I could do what every instinct in my body was screaming at me to do. I could fight back. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person your mother really is. Dad, don't do anything stupid. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm going to be very smart about this. The next morning, I started making calls. First, I called Rebecca's boss, Martin Kessler, senior partner at Kessler, Wade & Associates. I'd met him a few times at firm parties, a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and old money manners. Mr. Kessler, this is Danny Morrison, Rebecca's husband. Danny, how are you? How's Rebecca? She's been working so hard lately. That's actually why I'm calling. I wanted to thank you for being so understanding about her situation. Her situation? The affair. I know it must be difficult having two of your partners involved in a personal relationship, especially when one of them is married. I appreciate you being discreet about it. Silence on the other end of the line. Mr. Morrison, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Rebecca and Chad Brennan. I know they've been trying to keep it quiet, but I caught them together. I just wanted you to know that I don't blame the firm. These things happen. I see. Thank you for calling, Mr. Morrison. I'll need to look into this matter. Of course. I understand you have policies about workplace relationships. I'm sure you'll handle it appropriately. I hung up, smiling for the first time in days. Next, I called Rebecca's mother. Dorothy Whitman lived in an assisted living facility in Florida, where she spent her days playing bridge and complaining about the food. She'd never approved of me either, thought her daughter could have done better than a mechanic with a high school education. Danny, this is unexpected. Is Rebecca all right? She's fine, Mrs. Whitman. I was calling to let you know that Rebecca and I are separating. Oh dear, I'm so sorry to hear that. I thought you should know that she's been having an affair with a colleague. I caught them together at a restaurant. Dorothy's intake of breath was sharp enough to cut glass. Are you certain? I saw them with my own eyes. She took off her wedding ring and was holding hands with him. That little... Dorothy caught herself. I mean, how shocking. I know how much family reputation means to you. I wanted you to hear it from me before it becomes public knowledge. Public knowledge? Well, these things have a way of getting around, especially in legal circles. I'm sure people will be talking. I could practically hear Dorothy's blood pressure rising. The Whitman family had been pillars of their community for generations. The thought of her daughter being known as a woman who betrayed her marriage would eat at Dorothy like acid. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth about what kind of person Rebecca really is. Danny, perhaps you should consider the consequences. I have considered them. Have a nice day, Mrs. Whitman. By noon, my phone was ringing off the hook. The first call was from Rebecca, her voice shaking with rage. What did you do? I told the truth. Novel concept, I know. You called my boss? You called my mother? I called a lot of people. Thought they should know what's been going on. You're unbelievable. Vindictive and petty. I'm petty? I'm not the one who threw away 20 years of marriage for some pretty boy with perfect teeth. Martin wants to see me in his office this afternoon. There could be disciplinary action. Gee, that's terrible. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started sleeping with your colleague. I could lose my partnership, and I lost my wife. Funny how actions have consequences. She hung up on me. The second call was from Chad. Morrison, this is Chad Brennan. We need to talk. I don't think we do. You're destroying innocent people's lives, my wife, my children. I didn't destroy anything. You did that when you decided to sleep with my wife. Sarah took the girls to her mother's house. She won't even talk to me. That's between you and Sarah. You don't understand. I could lose everything, my job, my family. Now you're getting it. Please, I'm begging you. Stop this. I thought about his daughters, 7 and 9 years old, trying to understand why Mommy was crying and Daddy was sleeping on the couch. I thought about Emma, finding out her mother was a cheater. I thought about all the innocent people caught in the crossfire of other people's selfishness. Then I thought about 20 years of marriage, reduced to a wedding ring sitting on a restaurant table. Should have thought about that before you put your hands on my wife. I hung up on him too. The third call was from Jake at the gym. Danny, what the hell are you doing? fighting back. I heard you called half the city, telling everyone about Rebecca and this Chad guy. News travels fast. You're playing with fire, my friend. These people have money, connections. They can make your life very difficult. My life is already difficult. My wife is sleeping with another man, my daughter thinks I'm the bad guy, and I'm living alone in a house full of memories. How much worse can it get? A lot worse if you're not careful. Come down to the gym. Let's talk about this face to face. I found Jake in the ring working with a young heavyweight who had more muscle than skill. He sent the kid to work the heavy bag and climbed through the ropes to meet me. You look like hell, he said. I feel like hell. Good, means you're still human. Jake pulled off his gloves and sat on the edge of the ring. Now tell me what you're really trying to accomplish here. Well, I want everyone to know what she did. I want her to face consequences. And then what? You think she's going to come crawling back, begging for forgiveness? I don't want her back. Then what do you want? I thought about it. What did I want? Justice? Revenge? For Rebecca to hurt the way I was hurting? I want her to lose everything the way I lost everything. Jake nodded slowly. Okay, I can understand that. But you're going about it all wrong. What do you mean? You're fighting angry. Angry fighters make mistakes, leave themselves open for counterpunches. You want to take down someone with Rebecca's resources and connections, you need to be smart about it. I am being smart. No, you're being loud. There's a difference. Jake stood up and started pacing. Right now, you're the crazy ex-husband making wild accusations. She's the successful lawyer whose marriage fell apart. Guess who people are going to sympathize with? He was right, and I knew it. I'd been so focused on exposing Rebecca that I hadn't thought about how it would look to other people. So what do? You play the long game. You document everything, build a case, wait for the right moment to strike. And most importantly, you make sure you come out looking like the wrong party, not the aggressor. How do I do that? Jake smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. You let her make the next move. And when she does, you'll be ready for her. Jake was right about Rebecca making the next move. It came on Monday morning in the form of a process server at my front door. Daniel Morrison, that's me. You've been served. The papers were for a restraining order. According to the petition, I'd been stalking, repeatedly contacting, and threatening Rebecca and Chad Brennan. The order prohibited me from contacting Rebecca except through attorneys, coming within 500 feet of her workplace, and discussing our private marital matters with third parties. At the bottom of the page, Rebecca's signature looked confident and decisive. She'd moved fast, probably filed the papers Friday afternoon right after our phone conversation. I called Jake. She got a restraining order. Smart move on her part. Makes you look dangerous, her look vulnerable. I never threatened her. Doesn't matter. The order's in place now. You violate it, you go to jail. So what do? You get a lawyer, and you stop talking to people about this situation. From now on, everything goes through legal channels. I spent the morning calling divorce attorneys. The first 3 wouldn't take my case once they heard Rebecca worked at Kessler, Wade & Associates. Professional courtesy, they said. Conflict of interest. The 4th lawyer, a tired-looking man named Bill Hendricks, who worked out of a strip mall office, agreed to see me that afternoon. Hendricks was about my age, with rumpled clothes and coffee stains on his tie. His office smelled like cigarettes and desperation. So your wife's having an affair with a colleague, and now she's got a restraining order against you, he said, reading through the papers. Tell me what happened. I told him everything, from the late-night phone calls to the scene at the restaurant to my campaign of phone calls. Hendricks listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. Well, Mr. Morrison, I'll be honest with you. You've made some tactical errors, such as confronting them in public, calling her employer, discussing the situation with family members. It all supports her claim that you've been engaging in repeated unwanted contact. I was trying to expose the truth. I understand that. But from a legal standpoint, you've given her ammunition to use against you in divorce proceedings. What kind of ammunition? Hendricks leaned back in his chair. She can claim you're unstable, vindictive, possibly dangerous. That could affect property division, maybe even visitation rights if you had minor children. Our daughter's 19. Then that's one less thing to worry about. But you still need to be careful. Any violation of this restraining order and you'll be in jail. So she gets to cheat on me and I get punished for it. Welcome to family court, Mr. Morrison. It's not about justice. It's about who tells the better story. I paid Hendricks a retainer I couldn't afford and drove home to my empty house. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the tick of the clock in the hallway and the hum of the refrigerator. I'd lived in this house for 15 years, but without Rebecca's presence, it felt like a museum of my failed marriage. That evening, Emma called again. Dad, I heard about the restraining order. Your mother works fast. She's scared, Dad. She thinks you might do something crazy. Like what? I don't know. She said you've been acting erratic, calling people, making threats. I never threatened anyone. She said you followed her to a restaurant and confronted her lover in public. I confronted my wife about her affair. There's a difference. Emma sighed. Dad, I know you're hurt. I know Mom screwed up. But this isn't the way to handle it. Then what is? Should I just pretend it never happened? Should I let her destroy our marriage and walk away like nothing matters? You should get counseling. You should try to work things out. You can't work things out with someone who doesn't want to be worked out with. Have you tried? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Had I tried? Had I ever asked Rebecca what was wrong, why she was pulling away, what I could do to fix things? Or had I just assumed everything was fine until I caught her cheating? It's complicated, Em. It doesn't have to be. Mom made a mistake. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. She chose to take off her wedding ring. She chose to hold hands with another man. She chose to lie to me about where she was going and who she was with. So what are you going to do? Destroy her life? Ruin her career? I'm going to make sure there are consequences for her actions. And what about consequences for your actions? What about the people you're hurting? I thought about Chad's daughters, about his wife Sarah, about Emma herself caught in the middle of her parents' war. I didn't start this fight, but you can choose how to finish it. After Emma hung up, I sat in my living room staring at our wedding photos on the mantelpiece. Rebecca in white, young and beautiful and smiling like she meant it. Me in a rented tuxedo, grinning like I'd won the lottery. Maybe I had for a while. The next morning brought more bad news. I got a call from my boss at Morrison's Auto Repair. No relation, despite the name. Tom Morrison was a decent guy who'd given me steady work for 12 years and never asked questions when I needed time off. Danny, we need to talk. What's up, Tom? I got a visit yesterday from some lawyer representing your wife. He said you've been using company resources to pressure her. What kind of resources? He mentioned phone calls made from the shop using the computer to look up personal information. He said, if it continues, they'll file a complaint with the state licensing board. My heart sank. Tom, I made a couple of phone calls during lunch break. I never used the computer for anything personal. I believe you, Danny, but I can't afford trouble with the state. You understand? Are you firing me? I'm putting you on unpaid leave until this situation gets resolved. I'm sorry, but I got to protect the business. I understood, but it still felt like another kick in the teeth. Rebecca was systematically destroying my life, using her legal training and professional connections to cut off my resources and isolate me from my support system. That afternoon, I went to the gym to work off my frustration. Jake was training a young woman, teaching her basic combinations on the heavy bag. She had good form, quick hands, reminded me of Emma at that age. Take 5, Lisa, Jake told her when he saw me. Work on your footwork. We walked to his office and Jake closed the door. You look worse than yesterday. I got suspended from work. Rebecca's lawyer threatened my boss. Jake whistled low. She's not messing around. What am I supposed to do? She's got money, connections, legal training. I'm just a mechanic with a high school education. You're a mechanic with 20 years of marriage to a woman who just showed her true colors. That's got to count for something. Not in court, apparently. Jake sat down behind his desk and pulled out a bottle of whiskey. He poured 2 glasses and handed me one. Danny, let me tell you something. I've been in this neighborhood for 15 years. I've seen a lot of guys get knocked down by life. The ones who stay down are the ones who forget what they're fighting for. What am I fighting for? Your dignity, your self-respect, the right to be treated like a human being instead of a piece of furniture. I sipped the whiskey. It burned, but it was a good burn. Rebecca's smart, Jake continued. She's using the system against you, making you look like the bad guy. But she's also making enemies. What do you mean? Think about it. She's sleeping with a married colleague, destroying his family. She's using legal tricks to silence her husband. She's putting her own career ahead of everyone else's feelings. How long before people start to see her for what she really is? What if they don't? Then you make sure they do. But you do it smart this time. No more phone calls, no more public scenes. You document everything, build a case, wait for the right moment. And then what? Jake smiled that dangerous smile again. Then you show everyone what a real knockout looks like. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to the people in Rebecca's orbit. I couldn't contact her directly because of the restraining order, but there was nothing stopping me from observing from a distance. I learned that Chad's wife, Sarah, had indeed left him, taking their daughters to her mother's house in Ohio. Chad was living alone in their suburban McMansion, driving to work each day in his damaged BMW, looking haggard and defeated. I learned that Rebecca's boss, Martin Kessler, had launched a quiet investigation into the affair. Workplace relationships weren't forbidden at the firm, but they had to be disclosed to avoid conflicts of interest. Rebecca and Chad had violated policy by keeping their relationship secret. Most importantly, I learned that Rebecca wasn't as popular at work as she'd pretended to be. She had a reputation for being cold, ambitious, willing to throw colleagues under the bus to advance her own career. The affair with Chad had confirmed what many people already suspected, that Rebecca Morrison would do whatever it took to get what she wanted, regardless of who got hurt. All of this information came from casual conversations with people who worked at the firm. I never asked direct questions, never mentioned my connection to the situation. I just listened, and I waited. The opportunity came 2 weeks later at Emma's college homecoming weekend. She'd invited both Rebecca and me, hoping we could act like civilized adults for one day. Rebecca agreed, probably thinking it would make her look like the reasonable parent. I hadn't seen my wife in 3 weeks. She looked tired, stressed, older than her 40 years. She was wearing a new outfit, expensive looking, probably bought with money from our joint account. We met at a restaurant near campus, neutral territory. Emma sat between us like a referee, trying to keep the conversation light. "So how's work, Mom?" "Busy, very busy." Rebecca didn't look at me. "We're handling a big corporate merger, lots of late nights." "I bet," I said. Emma shot me a warning look. "And Dad, how's the shop?" "Actually, I'm between jobs right now, taking some time to reassess my priorities." Rebecca's head snapped up. "You got fired?" "Suspended, actually. Apparently some lawyer complained to my boss about maltreatment. Funny thing is, I never engaged in unwanted contact with anyone. Danny, it's okay though. Gives me time to focus on other projects." "What kind of projects?" Emma asked. I smiled at Rebecca. "I'm thinking of writing a book about marriage, betrayal, the legal system. I think a lot of people would be interested in that kind of story." Rebecca's face went pale. "You can't do that." "Why not? It's a free country. People have a right to know the truth. You signed a restraining order. That prevents me from contacting you or discussing our private matters with third parties. It doesn't prevent me from writing about my own experiences." Emma looked back and forth between us. "Guys, can we please not do this here?" "Your father is threatening me," Rebecca said. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just exploring my creative options." Rebecca stood up abruptly. "I'm leaving." "Mom, please." "I'm sorry, Emma. I can't sit here and listen to this." She grabbed her purse and headed for the exit. I waited 30 seconds, then followed her to the parking lot. "Rebecca." She spun around, her face twisted with rage. "Stay away from me. We need to talk. The restraining order doesn't apply to accidental encounters in public places. I have as much right to be here as you do. What do you want?" "I want my life back. I want my job back. I want my reputation back. I didn't take any of those things from you. You destroyed my marriage, cost me my job, and turned my own daughter against me. What would you call that?" "I call that consequences for your own behavior." I stepped closer. Rebecca backed against her car, suddenly looking frightened. "My behavior? I wasn't the one cheating. You were the one following them, engaging in repeated unwanted contact, making statements that caused fear. I never threatened anyone. I told the truth. That's not a crime. It is when you do it to hurt people. You mean the way you hurt me? The way you hurt Chad's wife and daughters? The way you hurt Emma?" Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable and human. "I never meant for any of this to happen." "But it did happen. And now we both have to live with the consequences. What do you want from me, Danny?" I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I'd loved for 20 years. This stranger who had destroyed everything we'd built together. "I want you to remember this moment," I said finally, "because everything that happens next is going to be your fault." I walked away, leaving her standing alone in the parking lot. The war was about to begin in earnest. The next phase of my campaign began with research. If Rebecca wanted to play legal games, I needed to understand the rules better than she did. I spent hours at the public library reading about divorce law, property rights, and civil litigation. I learned about discovery procedures, deposition protocols, and the difference between contested and uncontested divorce. Most importantly, I learned that Rebecca had made several tactical errors of her own. The restraining order, for instance, was based on claims of maltreatment and threats. But maltreatment required a pattern of unwanted contact, and threats had to be specific and credible. Telling the truth about someone's affair didn't qualify as either. More significantly, Rebecca's affair with Chad created potential ethical violations. As partners in the same firm, they had a duty to disclose their relationship to avoid conflicts of interest. By keeping it secret, they'd violated state bar rules about professional conduct. I shared this information with my lawyer, Bill Hendricks, who perked up for the first time since I'd hired him. "This is good," he said, reading through my notes. "We can file a counter petition, claim the restraining order was obtained through false statements. If we can prove she lied to the court, the judge won't be happy." "What about the ethics violations?" "That's trickier. You'd need to file a complaint with the State Bar Association. But if they find wrongdoing, it could affect her license to practice law." I thought about that. Rebecca had worked for years to build her career, to establish herself as a respected attorney. Her law license was everything to her, more important than our marriage, apparently. "Do it," I said. While Hendricks prepared the legal paperwork, I focused on gathering evidence. I couldn't violate the restraining order by contacting Rebecca directly, but there was nothing preventing me from documenting her public behavior. I started following her again, carefully and discreetly. I learned her new routines, her favorite restaurants, the hotel where she met Chad for their afternoon encounters. I photographed them together, recorded their license plates, documented dates and times. I also started reaching out to Chad's wife, Sarah. She was staying with her mother in Ohio, trying to figure out what to do with her life. I found her through social media and sent a carefully worded message. "Mrs. Brennan, my name is Danny Morrison. I'm the husband of the woman your husband was having an affair with. I know this is a difficult time for you, but I thought you should know that there are legal options available. If you're interested in pursuing them, please contact me." Sarah called me that evening. "Mr. Morrison, I got your message. Thank you for calling. I know this is awkward." "Sarah, and yes, it's awkward, but I'm interested in what you said about legal options. Your husband's affair has cost me my job and damaged my reputation. I'm sure you've suffered similar consequences. I've had to take the girls out of school, leave my job, move in with my mother. Chad was supposed to be paying the mortgage on our house, but apparently he's been spending money on hotels and expensive dinners. Have you filed for divorce? I'm thinking about it, but I don't know if I can afford a good lawyer. What if I told you there might be a way to make Chad and my wife pay for both our legal fees?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I'm listening." I explained about the ethics violations, the potential civil claims for alienation of affection, the possibility of suing both Chad and Rebecca for the financial damages their affair had caused. "It's called a civil conspiracy," I told her. "When two people work together to cause damage to a third party, they can both be held liable for the damages. Would that actually work? I don't know, but I think it's worth trying. At the very least, it would force them to spend money defending themselves instead of spending it on hotel rooms." Sarah agreed to meet with Bill Hendricks. Within a week, we had a plan. The first blow came when Hendricks filed a motion to dismiss the restraining order, claiming it was based on false and misleading statements. He attached my documentation of Rebecca's affair, including photos and witness statements, proving that my actions had been in response to legitimate concerns about my wife's behavior. The second blow came when Sarah filed for divorce in Ohio, claiming marital infidelity and seeking maximum damages under that state's more conservative laws. She also filed a civil suit against both Chad and Rebecca for alienation of affection and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The third blow came when I filed a complaint with the State Bar Association, alleging that Rebecca and Chad had violated professional ethics rules by failing to disclose their relationship and by using firm resources to facilitate their affair. All three actions were coordinated to hit on the same day, ensuring maximum impact and preventing Rebecca from responding to each one individually. The effect was immediate and devastating. Within hours of the filings, Rebecca's phone was ringing constantly. Her boss, Martin Kessler, called an emergency partners meeting. Chad's divorce lawyer in Ohio called to inform him about Sarah's lawsuit. The State Bar Association opened a formal investigation. I knew all this because Emma called me that evening, her voice shaking with anger. "Dad, what did you do? I fought back. Mom's been crying for hours. She said you're trying to destroy her career." I'm trying to hold her accountable for her actions. By ruining her life, she ruined her own life when she decided to cheat on me. This is too much, Dad. You've gone too far. Have I? Let me ask you something, Em. If someone stole your car, would you just let them keep it? If someone robbed your house, would you just shrug and move on? That's different. How's it different? Your mother stole 20 years of my life. She robbed me of my trust, my marriage, my sense of security. Why should she get to walk away without consequences? Because she's still my mother. Because I love her. I loved her too. That's why this hurts so much. Emma was crying now. I can't choose between you. I won't choose. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to understand that actions have consequences, even for people we love. She hung up on me. The next morning, I got a call from Jake at the gym. Danny, you need to get down here right now. What's wrong? Just get down here. I found Jake in the ring with two men in expensive suits. They looked out of place in the sweaty, working-class environment of the gym, like wolves in a sheep pen. Mr. Morrison? The taller one stepped forward. I'm David Walsh, attorney for Kessler, Wade & Associates. This is my colleague, James Chen. I looked at Jake, who shrugged. They were waiting when I opened up this morning. What can I do for you, gentlemen? Walsh pulled out a thick envelope. We're here to discuss a settlement offer. Settlement for what? The various legal actions you've initiated against our client, Rebecca Morrison, and her colleague, Chad Brennan. I took the envelope but didn't open it. I'm listening. Our clients are prepared to offer you a substantial financial settlement in exchange for dropping all pending litigation and agreeing not to pursue further legal action. How substantial? $250,000. I felt Jake's sharp intake of breath beside me. It was more money than I made in 5 years. What are the conditions? You drop the motion to dismiss the restraining order. You withdraw the bar complaint. You convince Mrs. Brennan to drop her civil suit in Ohio. And you sign a non-disclosure agreement preventing you from discussing this matter publicly. In other words, you want to buy my silence. We want to resolve this matter amicably, without further damage to anyone involved. I looked at the envelope in my hands. $250,000. I could pay off the mortgage on my house, buy a new truck, maybe even start my own business. I could rebuild my life without the stress and uncertainty of litigation. All I had to do was let Rebecca and Chad walk away from their betrayal without facing any real consequences. I need to think about it. Of course, but we need an answer by tomorrow. The offer expires at close of business Friday. After they left, Jake and I sat in his office, staring at the settlement offer. That's a lot of money, Jake said. It is. Enough to start over, put this whole mess behind you. It is. But you're not going to take it. I looked at him. Would you? Jake was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. 250 grand is a lot of money for a guy like me. It's not about the money. Then what's it about? It's about the principle. It's about the idea that people should face consequences for their actions. It's about not letting rich, connected people buy their way out of trouble. Sometimes principles are expensive, Danny. Sometimes they're all you have left. That evening, I called Sarah in Ohio. They offered me $250,000 to drop everything, I told her. Jesus, that's a lot of money. What do you think I should do? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I think you should do whatever feels right to you. But I want you to know that whatever you decide, I'm going to keep fighting. Chad destroyed my family, my children's sense of security. No amount of money is going to fix that. Even if it means you don't get anything? Even if it means I don't get anything. Some things are more important than money. I called Bill Hendricks and told him to reject the settlement offer. The response was swift and brutal. On Friday afternoon, I got a call from the police. Someone had filed a complaint claiming I was violating the restraining order by following Rebecca and taking photographs. The detective who called was polite but firm. Mr. Morrison, we need you to come in for questioning. About what? About your activities over the past few weeks. We have reports that you've been stalking your estranged wife in violation of a court order. I haven't violated anything. I've been documenting evidence for my divorce case. That's something we'll need to discuss in person. Can you come in this afternoon? I called Hendricks, who agreed to meet me at the police station. We spent 3 hours answering questions, explaining the difference between legitimate evidence gathering and stalking, showing that I'd never approached Rebecca directly or attempted to contact her. In the end, no charges were filed, but the message was clear. Rebecca and her lawyers were playing hardball. The next week brought more pressure. I got a call from my landlord. I'd been renting my house from Rebecca's cousin for the past 5 years, informing me that my lease wouldn't be renewed. I got a letter from my bank, questioning some recent transactions and suggesting I might want to consider switching to a different financial institution. I got a call from my insurance company, informing me that my rates were going up due to recent risk factors. Rebecca was using every connection she had to make my life difficult. But I wasn't the only one feeling pressure. Through my network of contacts, bartenders, mechanics, people who heard things, I learned that Rebecca and Chad's situation was deteriorating rapidly. The partners at their firm were furious about the ethics violations and the negative publicity. Chad was facing a messy divorce in Ohio that was likely to cost him half his assets. Rebecca was spending thousands of dollars on legal fees to defend against multiple lawsuits. Most importantly, their affair was falling apart under the pressure. According to my sources, they were fighting constantly, blaming each other for the mess they'd created. The end came sooner than I expected. On a Thursday morning in November, I got a call from Emma. "Dad, I'm at the hospital. Mom's here." My heart stopped. What happened? She collapsed at work. They think it was exhaustion and stress. She's been working 18-hour days, not eating, not sleeping. Is she okay? She's stable, but Dad, she looks terrible. She's lost 20 pounds, her hair is falling out. This whole thing is ending her. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Satisfaction, guilt, concern, vindication. "I'll be right there. Dad, please, don't make a scene. She's been through enough." I found Emma in the hospital waiting room, looking young and scared. She hugged me when I arrived, and for a moment, we were just a father and daughter dealing with a crisis. "How is she?" "The doctor said she's suffering from acute stress and malnutrition. She hasn't been taking care of herself. Can I see her? She's sleeping. But Dad, when she wakes up, please just be kind." I sat with Emma for 2 hours, waiting for Rebecca to wake up. When she finally did, she looked fragile and defeated. Nothing like the confident lawyer who'd walked out of our marriage. "Danny?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." I looked at this woman I'd loved and hated and fought against for months. She looked broken, used up, destroyed by the consequences of her own choices. "I know," I said. "Can we stop fighting, please? I can't do this anymore." I thought about the settlement offer, the legal battles, the principle of the thing. I thought about Sarah in Ohio, still fighting her own war. I thought about Emma, caught in the middle of her parents' destruction. "What do you want, Rebecca?" "I want to end this. All of it. The lawsuits, the investigations, the restraining order. I want to give you whatever you want and just stop." "What about Chad?" Rebecca closed her eyes. "Chad's moving to California. His firm is transferring him to their Los Angeles office. We're not together anymore." "And the ethics investigation?" "I'll probably lose my license for a while. Maybe permanently. I don't know if I care anymore." I looked at Emma, who was watching us both with tears in her eyes. "I want the house," I said finally, "and half of everything else. And I want a written apology acknowledging what you did and taking full responsibility for the breakdown of our marriage." Rebecca nodded weakly. "Done. And I want you to call Sarah Brennan and apologize to her personally and to her daughters." "Okay. And I want you to get help. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes to figure out why you threw away 20 years of marriage for a man who abandoned you the first time things got difficult." Rebecca was crying now, silent tears running down her cheeks. "I will." I stood up to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth, Rebecca, I didn't want it to end this way." "I know," she whispered. "I know." The divorce was finalized on a cold February morning, 3 months after Rebecca's hospitalization. We met at the courthouse with our lawyers, signed the papers, and officially ended 20 years of marriage with the stroke of a pen. Rebecca looked better than she had in the hospital. She'd gained back some weight, and her hair was growing back. But she still seemed fragile, uncertain. She was seeing a therapist twice a week and had taken a leave of absence from the law firm while the ethics investigation continued. "I guess this is it," she said as we stood on the courthouse steps. "I guess so. Danny, I want you to know I really am sorry about all of it. I know you are. Do you think Do you think we'll ever be able to be friends? For Emma's sake? I thought about it. The anger that had driven me for months was mostly gone, replaced by something that felt like sadness mixed with relief. Maybe someday. Not now, but maybe someday. She nodded and walked away. And I watched her go without feeling the need to follow or document or punish. It was over. The settlement had been generous. I got the house, half of Rebecca's retirement account, and a lump sum payment that allowed me to pay off my debts and start fresh. More importantly, I got my dignity back. The ethics investigation concluded that Rebecca and Chad had violated professional conduct rules by failing to disclose their relationship and by using firm resources for personal matters. Rebecca received a 6-month suspension of her law license and a formal reprimand. Chad, who had already moved to California, received a similar punishment from the Ohio Bar Association. Sarah's divorce was finalized around the same time as mine. She got the house, custody of the girls, and substantial alimony payments. Chad was required to pay child support until both daughters turned 18 and to contribute to their college expenses. Most satisfying of all, the civil suit for alienation of affection was successful. The Ohio court awarded Sarah $50,000 in damages, finding that Chad and Rebecca had intentionally interfered with her marriage and caused her emotional distress. I never saw Chad again. According to Emma, he was working for a small firm in Los Angeles, trying to rebuild his career and his relationship with his daughters. His ex-wife, Sarah, had remarried, a high school principal who treated her girls like his own daughters. As for me, I used part of the settlement money to buy into Jake's gym as a partner. We expanded the business, adding a youth program and self-defense classes for women. It felt good to be building something positive instead of tearing something down. Emma and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. She was angry with me for a long time, feeling like I'd been unnecessarily cruel to her mother. But as she got older and gained more perspective on adult relationships, she began to understand why I'd fought so hard. I still think you went too far, she told me one day over lunch. But I also understand why you felt like you had to fight back. I probably did go too far, I admitted, but sometimes you have to go too far to get people's attention. Do you regret it? I thought about that question for a long time. Did I regret the months of anger and legal battles? Did I regret the pain I'd caused Rebecca and Chad and their families? Did I regret choosing revenge over reconciliation? I regret that it was necessary, I said finally, but I don't regret standing up for myself. The real victory came 2 years later at Emma's law school graduation. She'd decided to follow in her mother's footsteps, but with a focus on family law and helping people navigate divorce and custody issues. Rebecca was there, of course, looking proud and healthy. She'd returned to work at a smaller firm, specializing in pro bono cases for people affected by domestic misuse. We sat on opposite sides of the auditorium, but we managed to have a civil conversation at the reception afterward. She's going to be a good lawyer, Rebecca said, watching Emma talk to her professors. Better than both of us, I think. She learned from our mistakes. She learned that actions have consequences. Rebecca looked at me for a moment. Is that what this was all about? Teaching consequences? Partly, but mostly it was about refusing to be defined by what was done to me. I never meant to make you feel that way. I know, but that's what happened when you decided our marriage didn't matter enough to fight for. And you decided it mattered enough to fight against. I decided I mattered enough to fight for. We watched Emma laugh at something one of her classmates said. She looked happy, confident, ready to take on the world. She's going to change things, Rebecca said. She already has. That evening, I drove home to the house that was finally, legally, completely mine. I sat on the porch with a beer, watching the sunset and thinking about the past few years. I'd lost a wife but kept my self-respect. I'd lost some friends but gained others who valued loyalty over convenience. I'd lost a job but found a calling. I'd lost my illusions about marriage and love and trust, but I'd gained something more valuable, the knowledge that I could survive betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Thanks for coming today, Dad. Love you. I texted back, love you too, kiddo. Proud of you. Another text, this one from Sarah in Ohio. Saw Emma's graduation photos on Facebook. Beautiful girl. You should be proud. I am. How are the girls? Great. Jessica made honor roll and Amy just got accepted to State University. They ask about you sometimes. Tell them Uncle Danny says hi. Will do. Take care of yourself. I finished my beer and went inside. The house was quiet, but it was a good quiet now, peaceful instead of oppressive. I'd filled it with new memories, new furniture, new possibilities. In the kitchen, I found the letter I'd written to myself on the day the divorce was finalized, a reminder of what I'd learned and what I'd promised myself going forward. Danny, it read, by the time you read this again, hopefully the anger will have faded and the lessons will remain. You learned that love without respect is worthless. You learned that trust, once broken, can never be fully repaired. You learned that sometimes the people we love most are capable of hurting us the worst. But you also learned that you're stronger than you thought. You learned that standing up for yourself is worth the cost. You learned that dignity can't be taken from you. It can only be given away. Don't give it away again. And don't become bitter. Rebecca made her choices and she paid the price. You made yours and you paid yours too. Emma will make hers and hopefully she'll choose better than both of you. The war is over. You won. Now figure out what you're going to do with the victory. I folded the letter and put it back in the drawer. Outside, the streetlights were coming on, and the neighborhood was settling into evening routines. Families having dinner, kids doing homework, couples watching television together. Normal life, the kind I'd taken for granted for 20 years. I thought about calling someone, Jake maybe, or one of the guys from the gym. But I was content to be alone with my thoughts and my hard-won peace. Tomorrow, I'd go to work at the gym. I'd help train fighters and teach kids about discipline and respect. I'd continue building something positive from the wreckage of my marriage. But tonight, I was just going to sit in my house, and enjoy the silence of a war finally ended. I'd kept my promise to myself. I'd made sure everyone knew what Rebecca had done. I'd held her accountable for her choices. I'd refused to be defined by what happened to me. And in the end, that was enough. The phone rang one more time. Rebecca's name appeared on the caller ID. I stared at it for a moment, then let it go to voicemail. Whatever she had to say, it could wait. I was done fighting her battles and mine too. I was done with dirty secrets and legal wars and the exhausting business of revenge. I was ready to move forward. I turned off the lights and headed upstairs to bed, leaving the past where it belonged, behind me. In the darkness of my bedroom, I smiled for the first time in years. Not a bitter smile or a vengeful smile, but a genuine expression of satisfaction and peace. I'd won the war, but more importantly, I'd won back myself. And that was the only victory that really mattered.